Previously, in part 1 to 3 of this video series, I compare two separate adventures going round the lovely island of Mull to show why I never tire of visiting the same places. Going by small boat means each and every trip is different, as weather and sea conditions vary tremendously. In the last episode of a journey I made in September 2023, I paused when I landed for a break in the island of Iona, while the journey Gordon and myself made in May 2022 paused on the island of Ulva. In this video I continue to a wonderful wilderness coast in the west of Mull, a remote area which can really only be accessed by boat, or some parts by long hard hikes as there are no roads or paths due to cliffs. Back in May 2022, after Gordon and myself had lunch in the sands at Ulva, we clambered back into our boats and carefully navigated the shallow waters heading for the wilderness coast. Once clear of the rocks and reefs off Ulva, we set course for the island of Kenneth, which for all intents and purposes of this video marks the start of the wilderness coastline. I couldn't help but notice that Kenneth also had a very interesting looking coastline, so promised myself I would explore it in more detail the next time I was in the area, and that's what I did in September 2023. After my morning break in Iona, I headed down Loch Tua on the north of Ulva, towards the sound of Ulva, where a passenger ferry was busy taking tourists to the Boathouse restaurant, which serves great food at a reasonable price. I carried on through the sound and was soon heading into Loch Nakiel. I smiled as I recalled the last time I went to Yorsa. It was my small F-rib and a really blustery day. I now headed towards Kenneth, skimming across the smooth sea surface. And when I got there, I landed in a lovely sandy bay to have a good look around the island with the drone. Then it was back to sea for me as I headed around Kenneth Headland towards the wilderness coast. That was when I noticed a dark patch on the calm surface, which then exploded with a pod of common dolphins. I knew it was coming next. They wanted to see what I was all about, so headed across and surrounded the boat. Because I took video footage of the wilderness coast, both in May 2022 and September 2023, For this next section, I will mix both days' clips as conditions were very similar. The first landmark is McKinnon's Cave, the largest cave in the Inner Hebrides. I didn't land there either days, but have also included some footage of when I explored it some years ago. The cave is easily identified by the tall waterfall to the left of its entrance. Going by foot, the cave can only be accessed at low tide, and some rocky reefs off its entrance make boat access difficult too. It's 500 feet long, so no daylight at all penetrates to the far end. Without a torch you cannot even see the hand in front of your face. The floor of the cave is fairly dry although stony, and the roof mostly very high. Adventurers Boswell and Johnson came here in 1773 on a trip that also included a visit to Staffa. Although they only had a candle, they measured the dimensions of the cave using a walking stick. They also noted, with some amusement, a local legend that a piper and his dog were lured into the cave by a devil. Only the dog emerged, terrified and without its hair. The piper can still be heard playing his bagpipes deep underground. I didn't hear the piper, and I still have the same amount of hair in my head as I went in with, which was not much anyway. I do recall being glad to be back outside the cave when I visited it, as I was alone when exploring, and my torch was not the brightest, which made my imagination work overtime. After McKinnon's Cave, there is 4.5 miles of spectacular coastal scenery. Huge cliffs, some reaching 1,000 feet in height, hidden bays, tumbling waterfalls, rock stacks and natural arches. Then for me the coastline ends with the 50-million-year-old fossil tree. Its outline etched into the cliffs of molten lava, which engulfed it when the volcano, which forms Ben More, Mull's highest hill, erupted. Leaving the wilderness coast, I then cut across the entrance to Loch Scridian towards the Ross of Mull. Back in May 2022, Gordon and myself camped overnight in a secluded, sheltered sandy bay, the perfect end to a spectacular day in the west coast of Mull. In May 2022, it took us 2 days to reach here. In September 2023, it took me 5 days, but I didn't stop. I continued on my way to the sound of Iona. Crossing the sound of Iona, I decided to land in Elan and Raid to get some more drone footage. And no sooner had the drone taken off than I saw 3 boats passing by. I recognised them and started jumping up and down until I attracted their attention. They then turned back to say hello. It was a quick meeting as they were on the way back to Oban, where I was only going as far as Loch Buie. We bid each other farewell and continued on our separate ways. Once I recovered the drone, I continued down the sound of Iona, passing the abbey on the way. Soon I was back in the Ross of Mull rock garden, where I'd been with Jeff only a few weeks previously. Back then it was a grey, colourless day, but this day the sun and blue sky turned the granite pink, and it looked absolutely magnificent. I went through the rock garden, visiting Tinker's Hole and Balfour's Bay in my favourite conditions of bright sun, blue skies and sea, pink granite and a nice swell creating a white wave as it hit shore. I didn't land at Balfour's Bay this time. Instead I continued on to Tregell Bay, where I let the drone loose once again. Then it was back to the boat, and I was soon crossing Ablanish Bay, heading towards Malcolm's Point and the magnificent Carsick Arches. Once round Malcolm's Point, the swell disappeared and the sea turned flat calm. I took advantage of the calm conditions to land at another cave that I had always wanted to visit. It doesn't look much from the sea and is almost hidden from view, but it holds an interesting chapter in Scotland's history. It's called Nuns' Cave, and when St. Columba, who was not as saintly as some make out, threw the nuns off the island of Iona, many took shelter in the cave. I don't know how long they stayed here, but it must have been a while, as they had time to scratch and carve little crosses into the stone walls. Another interesting point about this area is it's where the stone for many of Scotland's crosses and gravestones came from. The monks of old hammered wooden stakes into the cracks between the slabs and the shore. The tide and weather expanded the wood and broke the granite slabs free, and they were then carved for the graves. Then from the cave, it was only a hop, skip and splash round to Loch Buie, where I camped for the night. I enjoyed a quiet evening, scoffing dinner, slurping beer and walking the drone, before going to bed at sundown. I was no sooner in the tent than a strong wind got up from nowhere. It battered the tent all night and I hardly slept, thinking of my journey home in the morning. I got up at sunrise and packed everything away. I was hoping the wind, which had died a little, would not get up again before I crossed to the mainland. I still wore my dry suit, fully expecting a wet journey home, and although it was relatively calm in the shelter of Loch Buie, I expected a pounding once I met the open sea. However, my prayers for an easy crossing were answered, and I enjoyed a fast plane all the way back to the mainland. I followed the ominous dark cloud overhead, all the way to Kerala. Then not long later I was under the Connell Bridge and in home waters. My 6-day-long round of Mull was over, and I had a great time. Back in May 2022, after Gordon and myself camped overnight in a lovely sandy bay in the Ross of Mull, we also enjoyed a similar passage home, following much the same route. The weather was more overcast and a bit colder, but once again we had a great adventure. But as we didn't get storm-bound in Loch na Buie, it was 2 days shorter. I hope this comparison of 2 different trips around Mull show why I never tire of going round the islands. Each and every time is totally different. I hope you've enjoyed this video series, and thanks for watching.